Sharanam, just as Shiva and Shakti become one, I enter my heart and merge with your love. So welcome everybody to Speakeasy, to Virtual Speakeasy. I'm Maureen Muldoon, a grateful member of this community, and we are a place where we can speak easily about the limitless nature of God, of love, of life. And we attempt to traverse tough and tender topics in hopes of cultivating a greater understanding of our human experience and our own divinity. Because Speakeasy is an incubator of awesomeness. We love making dreams come true. If you hang out here for any duration of time, you will find yourself lifted by the coattails of the consciousness of this community, and you will be off to places you never knew existed and experiencing extravagant creativity moving through you. And that's the truth and the whole truth. So now it's my opportunity to introduce you to our beautiful speaker today, Nancy J. Hill. Nancy is an author. She's a filmmaker. She guides women to growth. She's a wife. She's a grandmother. And her mission is to help others find their voice and speak their truth. So she fits in very well here in our community. She says that it took her decades to realize that life naturally unfolds and to remember that is a delicious way to live, which is funny how it was just mirrored in Irene's prayer. You know, there's just like one heart, one voice. She has a master's degree in social work, and she's been in the business of helping professionals for 40 years. And she's held private practice in Elmhurst, Illinois for 14 years, where our own Bella Gordon lives. And she's also, as well as being a staff as a psychiatrist, hospital from 19, she's not that old, from 1981 to 1994, when she left her practice to facilitate workshops and retreats in groups. And for the last 20 years, she's led monthly women's circles, and her mission is to help others to find their voice and, again, to speak their truth. In April of 2013, at 69, she published her first book. She's going to tell us all about that beautiful experience. It's called Unfolding, Slow Down, Drop In, Dare More. And she's led 2 writers' workshops to Paris. Again, we're going to hear some of the details about that, the good, the beautiful, and the holy, as well as awkward. And she also leads retreats in Tahoe, Mexico. She's a writer, a producer, and now a documentarian. And she and her documentary is called Show Up, Dare to Live from Your Heart. And as she mentioned, Kathy Richards and I wrote the theme song for the movie, and I'm featured in the movie. So it will be showing on the 15th of October in Downers Grove at this amazing theater. And I don't know if it's going to be live streamed, but if you're in the area, there'll be a link in the chat, and you can join us. She's been married to her beautiful husband, Don, for 56 years. And they
actually 58. I forgot. Otherwise.
58
years.
58. Well, you got to make sure you count every year, because each one is a miracle. And she they have together from teenagers to elders. Isn't that great? And they have been delighting each other, and their son Douglas and their daughter Deborah, as well as 4 grandchildren. So she is a wealth of inspiration, of experience and enlightenment, and she's going to lay it down for us. So open up your minds, your hearts, your hands, and please welcome Nancy J. Hill.
Yay. Oh, thank you. That's a beautiful introduction. I realized that when I wrote 56 years, and then I said our son was 57, I was like, wait a minute, I think that doesn't add up. So, oh, Maureen, I found a copy and I sent it to you in the email of this song. I don't know if you can open it, but give it a go.
Okay.
Okay. And really the title today came from that song, there's a line in this song. It says, deep inside and buried, or tucked inside and buried deep, our heart has promises to keep. And that line just spoke so much to me. And what I realized is that those promises create a certain longing in us. And that longing has a different shape for each one of us. When I told this story recently at the Voice Box, and I really told more of the ego side of the story, which is definitely part of the story. But there's also a soulful side of the story, and the longing that got me there and got me to, well, I'll tell you where it got me. So in 2013, my book, as Maureen mentioned, was being published. And the publisher said to me, you know, it would be really good if you also created a free book online, you know, to promote part of your work. And so I went about doing it, and I created a book, which is still on my website for free, called Schmooze Your Muse. And then I developed a program, a 40-day program with that is about journaling. And it is that the first 5 weeks, because in, you know, the 35 days, 5 weeks, you focus on one sense while you're journaling for part of your journaling. So you tune into the sounds around you 1 week. You continue to journal on other things, but you're paying great attention to that. And in the last 5 days of the 40 days, you begin to create an experience that you want to live using all of the senses and making it very real for you. So I worked with a group of women, and we were doing this, and 40 days is a very, it has a spiritual context to it. It's in many religions. So anyway, on the 40th day, I get a call from the publisher, and he says to me, so what are you doing, and checking in. And I said, well, I just, you know, finished this program with women, and we created a vision of something we wanted to live. And he said, what was yours? And I said, well, I created this vision of going to Paris and leading women's circles in Paris, leading a couple of groups. And he said to me, would you like to do that? And I almost fell over. And I said, yes, I would love to do it. So it really came out of that experience, out of the creating something that is so real for us that we can taste it, touch it, smell it, feel it, and have it become real. So, and I had actually been to Paris a couple of years before that with my children and grandchildren. And I'd gone to the Shakespeare and Company bookstore, walked through it. I don't know if any of you have ever had the pleasure of being there. It's an iconic bookstore where a lot of the famous authors have come to write or to read their books. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have a reading there, to bring the women to that bookstore and do a reading there. So it was both, at that point, I have to say, it was both longing and ego that started to move through me and say, yeah, then you know, you'd be a real author. You'd be like those other people like Ernest Hemingway and Anais Nin and, you know, all these people. So I got, you know, my ego was very excited, and we kept trying to get it worked out. And they kept telling us, well, we can't schedule it right now. The woman's on maternity leave, but, you know, but they never said no. And so I took off for Paris. The women started arriving, and I set it up to have one group come at the beginning of 1 week and then the end of another week. And the second group was when we were going to do the reading at the bookstore, trying. And finally, we decided it wasn't going to happen. And so I started thinking about, because around that same time, there was Occupy Wall Street that was happening. And I thought, well, what would happen if we did like Occupy Shakespeare and Company, if we just kind of showed up, you know, and not even to burst into their store, but even just to be in the front of their store, you know, to do this reading. Well, and it was amazing how this whole process kept teaching me lessons and taking me to places that I didn't expect. The timing was miraculous. That's all I could say, in a very funny kind of teaching way. So Monday morning, we were going to do this on Wednesday, May 15th. And Monday morning, I go down to the hotel little cafe and I'm journaling away because I love journaling in the morning. And all of a sudden, I hear this conversation coming from a nearby table. And as life would have it, they are interviewing the prestigious author who is going to be speaking at Shakespeare and Company on the very day that we were planning our outing. And I just couldn't believe it. It was so amazing. This hotel was nowhere near the bookstore. There was nothing special. It was like a little boutique hotel off someplace. And but here I was faced again with this feeling of like, wow, if I was a real author, I would be, and yeah, I would be inside talking. So, but it made me really confirm the fact that I wanted to go through with our Occupy Shakespeare and Company. So that was Monday. Monday night, we get ready for bed. My husband, Don, as Maureen said, we've been together. Actually, we're together dating and married 62 years. We met when we were 16. And yes, I am 78 if you do the math. So anyway, at that night, we're getting ready to go to bed. And Don is my rock. He's the one, literally at every turn when I've started doing something, he's always said, you can do this, blah. We're getting ready for bed. And he says to me, have you thought about this, what you're talking about doing? I know it's fun for you, but you may be putting all of us at risk. I don't know if they're going to call the police if we're out there, what's going to happen. We were going to have Jennifer, who is the violinist who came with us, have her play some songs to attract, people to come and listen. He said, Jennifer doesn't have a permit. Maybe they'll put her in jail. I mean, he had me so cranked up. I couldn't believe it. Here's the guy who always is the one who says you can do it. And he's saying, I think this is a bad idea. And I think you're going to get us locked up in a foreign country. Like, oh my God. Well, and on top of it, we've had many arguments in our 62 years together. But we've been really good about staying with the communication and completing it, not agreeing, but getting to a pretty comfortable place at bedtime. We did not get there. We were mad and angry. He was upset because he's a person who follows every damn rule in the book. And I'm asking him to go outside of that. And so we go to bed, we're tossing and turning. I don't sleep. He doesn't sleep. We get up in the morning. We're still grumpy with each other, and the next morning we had a walking tour of part of Paris with the group. And so we go off to do the walking tour. And on the way back, we stop at a cafe for lunch. So I get back to the hotel and within an hour, I am sick as a dog. I have food poisoning. And like I said, I won't go into details, but if any of you have ever been very sick with food poisoning, you have an idea of what it's like. I spent a few hours in the bathroom. The rest of Tuesday, I spent in bed. We were going to go on Wednesday. And I was lying in bed praying and praying, please, whatever has a hold of me, please, please let go, let go. So I went to sleep on Tuesday night and I got up on Wednesday morning and I felt better. My stomach was gurgling and my guts were gurgling, but I was like, I am going to do this. We're going to show up. We're going to do the reading. I'm hoping that I'm going to touch the hearts of some women and men who are gathered, for this reading. And so we eventually, so that afternoon, we all jump on the metro, make it over to the bookstore. And as we're walking, actually, before we get to the bookstore, we're walking along, and Keith is a media guy who came with us. And he looks at me and he says, I think we should put your microphone on here. We can do your introduction any place, but then we'll know we would get the reading. And I said, so you're afraid that maybe the police will come and chase us away and we won't get to do this? And he said, well, yeah. So anyway, but here was one of the moments when spirit came through. I looked to the right, and where he had stopped me was in front of a store that had statues of Ganesh. And if you know, some people say Ganesha. He is a Hindu god who has the elephant head and the little boy body. And the thing about Ganesha or Ganesh that is so remarkable is that he removes obstacles. But what's even more remarkable that I found later is that he puts obstacles in our way if we are going in the wrong path. And standing there, a peace came over me, and I realized why I was there. I realized that this was part of my journey of claiming my voice, of standing in front of others and reading my words. And that it wasn't about the ego piece, which was there. And sometimes actually ego is the thing that gets us moving, So I walked down, I read from my book. Jennifer was going to play and attract people, but I felt so centered at that moment and so really filled with love for the whole process that I just said, Jennifer, I've got this. And I started reading, and people showed up. I could see the women particularly hanging on my words, and I will always remember their faces. And about that time, as I ended and I said a few words afterwards, I said, our dreams don't always come to us in the form that we think they will. I wanted to read in Shakespeare and Company, but it just wasn't going to happen. So here I am outside the store reading my book today. And I want to say to you, whatever your dream is, don't give up, keep going. It may not show up the way you expect it to show up, but it will show up if you stay with your heart and keep moving to that next place. So the longing that brought me there was really that line that keeps touching me, that deep inside, or tucked inside and buried deep, our heart has promises to keep. Our heart's promises really create the longing in us. And when we follow that longing, it's an amazing journey. We go places we never expect. And it's not only for us. When we do that and we stand in that space, others are moved too. A woman came up to me, and I don't know what her story was, but at the end of this time, she said, I just want you to know that I really needed to hear your words today. And I realized then that it was my ego wanted adulation and affirmation. The part of me that feels not good enough wanted some evidence that I really was good. I was a good author. But what I got was heartfelt appreciation that really fed me in a way that the ego could never. So I share these words with you today, and thank you for listening. And maybe Maureen has the song, I don't know, but if not, we'll share it with you sometime.
Yes, thank you so much, Nancy. And that, thank you so much. Yeah, anybody can write words on a page, but like when you can actually shift someone's consciousness, that's beyond the beyond. I do have the song. And we're going to hear from Mari first with some announcements and our giving statement. And then we will get to hear the song. And then we'll get to have a conversation. But I love that you highlighted those lyrics. Tucked inside and buried deep, our hearts hold promises to keep, and dreams of dreams not dreamed in sleep that call us by our names.
Yes.
I wrote that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, but look at, like, we get to kind of collaborate with each other, and the book is amazing. We'll have the link in the unfolding, and you can check out her words and her wisdom, a bottomless well of inspiration. But before we get to that, we're going to hear from Mari, and thanks for sticking in with us for the conversation and getting to hear the song. And I'll pass it to you, Mari.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. I am looking forward to this conversation. Welcome, everybody, again. My name is Mari D'Alessio, and I care for communications and education here. Therefore, I want to give you some information on some of the classes and events that we have available to you throughout the week. Every day we have something. So if you go to speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com, you can find some information there. Normally, I would direct you to the calendar. We have been having upgrades in our server this week, so you will not see much in the calendar. However, if you go to our webpage on the homepage, you can look through all of the events, and there are links there, and the links will take you to registration and a little bit more information about all those events. Tomorrow, Monday, it's going to be the second week of A Course in Abundance. However, you still have a chance to catch up. We do have a recording. So if you want to start your year in that sense of more abundance, whether it's health, whether it's wealth, relationships, time, or creativity, I invite you to consider joining us. The class meets Mondays at 6:30 p.m. Central, and it is going to be going on for 9 weeks, at this point, 8 weeks. But you still have a chance to sign up and catch up. On Friday, we have Introducing the Work of Byron Katie. And if you need a little bit more tweaking in the forgiveness department, that is the class you want to join. On Saturday, we have the Mary Magdalena Meditation and Blessing. And through the week, we have the salons, which are our small special interest groups. And if you go into our website, you can see all the different ones we have, and maybe you'll find something that you can join and be a part of. All specific details in regards of your time zone for these events, again, you can find at speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com. All of these events, the majority of them are free, available for you. And the reason we're able to provide this for free is because of your generous support. We are a non-for-profit community, and we can continue thriving by your donations. On the chat, you will see the link for a donation. So I invite you to go within and check with your inner teacher and see what is yours to give today, what is yours to share. No gift is too small. And if you don't catch the link on the chat, again, you can go to speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com and find the link there and see what is yours to give. And I pass it back for our conversation.
Thanks, Mari. So great. Okay, so here's the song. And if you put our friend back up, then we'll share the song. Hopefully this will work. And then we'll go into our conversation.
Which friend?
Our Nancy friend. Wait, where did it go? Okay, hold on.
Okay, you have to share the screen.
I do?
Yes.
Can I just share the music?
No.
Oh, okay.
Share the screen, go to advanced, and then share the sound.
Okay. Okay. Video. It says, okay, I'm just going to share. Oh, share sound. Okay.
Got it?
Okay.
And then hit
Yes.
share and then start the music. I don't see it yet, so
Nope.
advance.
Okay. I'm going to cancel that because that's not working. I'm just going to try and play the music because it's not allowing me to do that. Okay. Zoom would like to record this computer screen. Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's the problem. Okay. Thanks for sticking with us as I awkwardly work through this moment.
And a new computer.
That's okay.
Okay. And documentary. It's not working because we
Okay.
don't.
Let me,
Just go to things are popping up.
okay. Well, if you share the screen and then go to advanced at the top, then audio, computer audio.
Here, can you hear that, Joni?
No. Now I can.
Tucked inside and buried deep, your heart holds promises to keep. Dreams of dreams, not dreaming sleep. It calls you by your name. Out on the edge, you dare to crawl out, even though you're scared, even though you're not prepared. You're leaving just the same. And the old facade is wearing thin, revealing scars upon your skin, but nothing can contain you in your glory. There's no chance you're gonna fall despite the bridges you've been sold and the broken news that you've been told. You're writing your own story. Fortune smiles on those who walk through fire and fear, who jump into the void and trust wings to appear. For those who stand to face the winds and change and unknown trials. For those who believe, fortune smiles. Come again to grab the prize, so you've been warned that it's unwise. Dumb luck blesses other guys, at least it seems that way. Yet standing down on shaky knees, you clipped your wishes to the breeze. Hear the fears and fail to freeze, and still you came to play. Spotlight holds a holy spot for those who dare to take a shot. And if you freeze and fail or not, you're going. The music miners, those who try, and heaven's hand does not deny. So set yourselves and by and by, keep your embers glowing. 'Cause fortune smiles on those who walk through fire and fear, who jump into the void and trust their wings will appear. Those who stand to face the winds of change and unknown trials. For those who believe, fortune smiles. Yeah, fortune smiles. Fortune smiles. Hey, hey. Fortune
Good stuff, eh? So fun. So fun to collaborate. Yeah. So now's the time where we get to ask Nancy questions and add our own comments, thoughts, or feedback. And one thing I wanted to kick off the conversation with is something I actually read today from this other author that I follow, who I think is amazing. She's married to Jean Baptiste, who is the musician that's usually on that late night show. I forget the name of it.
Stephen Colbert. Stephen
Yes,
Colbert.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she is his wife, and she has started this isolation journal where she's going through this disease, which she began to just put prompts out every day. You can follow her on isolation journey. But the thing that she posted today was sticking with something just because it's familiar can breed dangerous complacency. And she kind of brought up this quote, which I'm sure you know, Nancy, and it feels like you live from this quote, which is, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was too painful than the risk it took to bloom. And it feels like you're ever pushing yourself through that, tight threshold of blooming into something new and something new and something new. And to see you add these additional identifiers of like author and published author and retreat runner and documentary maker, who knows what else is next, but it's just so beautiful to see you ever pushing past that dangerous complacency. But it doesn't come easily, I'm sure. And there was that point in your story where you almost, I want to say, what related to me was like, it felt like a subconscious saboteur that, even with myself, when I came home from Ireland, everything is going so well. And I've got this amazing week of creative invitations before me, including your film. And I got sick, and I never get sick. And I was like, man, it's like, sometimes we have this internal saboteur. And I just wondered if you wanted to speak to that at all, or any of it that I just brought up. I'll pass it to you.
Yeah. Gosh, I definitely, what I feel is that our longing, anybody's longing, takes us to the places where we don't fully experience that we are whole and complete. So, of course, if I'm following it, I'm going to bump into things that I'm going to come up against barriers. And whether it's like getting sick or a husband that is my support that's not there, it's like I'm needing to stand in my fullness, and these things are going to come towards me. That's how it feels to me. And it's like one of the opportunity to claim for each of us that we are whole and complete. There is always going to be a threshold that we have to pass through where it says, no, you're not. Look at this evidence, So I see it like that. I don't know if it's quite the same, but about the same.
Yeah. And like what I want to know and affirm is like, we currently have this consciousness where when we're birthing, when we're creating, it feels like things are falling apart a little bit. And we have this notion of labor pains and things get kind of sloppy. We see this in nature, when the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis and it goes down to goo, like all of these symbols of affirming that. And there's a place within me that lives on the cusp of saying, like, could we do without that? Like, could we do without Nancy getting sick before shining? I just wonder. And I want to hold that as a possibility, that the idea of labor pains is something that can be in our rear view mirror, and that we could continue to access like laborless deliveries and joyful deliveries and painless deliveries. So, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, well, it's a great thought. And I have met women who've given birth who said that they had an orgasm. It wasn't bad for them at all. I actually have talked to women.
I know
So,
that.
I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
I'm not there. That didn't happen for me.
We were actually talking about this very thing on our retreat. So we'll have to talk about this a little bit more in the parking lot. But in the meantime, I have a lot more to ask you, but I love that you have reason to support that possibility. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for our beloved Nancy Hill? Go ahead and look in the chat. Did anybody have anything that they wanted to share or thoughts that they have?
Yeah, and it may not be a question. Maybe you have an experience of actually giving birth or bringing something forward. And I'd love to hear what it was like for you. One of the things is that once we do something that's a challenge like that, we have a tendency to devalue it in a way and to not realize what it actually took. It's like, oh yeah, I did that, you know. But
Yeah.
I know that in this group, each one of you has done something that really caused you to cross that threshold between who you knew you were
Yeah.
and stepping into the mystery of who you were becoming.
Yeah, it's so good that you say that, because Regina Vertico and I work with women in helping them to step into their visibility in regards to marketing and branding. And the first thing we start with is celebrating how they got to this point and how they even have something that wants to be visible. And that awareness, because you're right, sometimes we never look in the rearview mirror to see what amazing legacies we've left. We're always looking forward to what is not yet. And so we get to take that moment to really celebrate, you know, how far we've come and what we have to deliver and how we've delivered it thus far.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. I want to say, and I think one of the things that gets in the way, and I love it because I feel like my writing was healing for me too, is that one of the people recently who has touched me so much about living their dream and showing up was an elderly man who I met in the waiting room of Wheaton Eye Clinic. And he walked up to me and he said, very well dressed, elegant looking. I assume he was like in his 90s, walked up to me and he said, "Do you like poetry?" And I saw him talking to other women or another person in there. And I was kind of, you know, a guy, I didn't know what to say. I said, yes. And he handed me, and I saw him hand to others, a single sheet of typewritten poems that he had written. To me, that is showing up. And I think sometimes it gets, you know, our dreams and showing up get put into, it has to be this big, you know, a huge project, 1,000 likes on, you know, social media. To me, that tender moment with that man, I will never forget that man. He wanted to share his poetry and he found a way to do it. And I think sometimes we don't count something unless it's huge. Maureen, you look like you got something to say, woman.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, like everything grows from that small seed of conception, and it starts out with sitting down and writing a line, and it moves into a sentence, and it moves into a paragraph, and it moves into sharing a poem, and it moves into somebody seeing it and putting it on Instagram, and it moves into like something that goes viral. And it all starts from like one brave step after one brave step of deciding, you know, that you're going to share your gifts. And, you know, in the course today, they had this, they had this this thing that they suggest that we do all the time, and it was repeated today, which was like, there's a voice of inspiration that lives in you, and you can ask it, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? And you know, that's like the world's greatest marketing plan, because you know you're working with spirit, and it will take you, you know, to, you know, showing up outside of you know, esteemed bookstores and reading, and your words will hit the exact ears that it needs to hit, and it will take you, you know, it will not ever take you a straight line. It will always take you around the block, into the corners, at back about the nooks and crannies, but you don't have to like double guess that you're still on course with your good. So that's what I'd say about that, is just do the next right thing. You know, I would love to hear after Irene a little bit about the people in your film and how you watched them and how you invited them to be in your film. So because these are people who like truly moved to the cusp of what they had known and then stepped forward into the mystery. Irene, you have a question for us?
Yeah, I have a comment about Nancy. I really enjoyed your story. And I have to say, what I felt about this idea of going to Shakespeare's bookstore is such playfulness. You know, and I just felt like that was the energy that gathered the other people with you, and then that just like, you know, fell over into the ladies and the people who listened to you. And I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, thank you for that, because playfulness is part of my MO. And it was definitely there. And there was that little bit of ego too in it. But thank you for recognizing that. That's great. Should I talk about the people in the film, or did you want to?
Yeah. And you know what? Like, ego can be transformed by the Holy Spirit. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And ego, again, as I said, I think ego sometimes gets us to move. It might be like, oh, wow, that would be cool. And it, but there you have it. So the people in the film, and I went back the other day and I was listening to one of your previous speakeasies, and you were talking about thresholds, and threshold is a big part, and you'll see that when you see the documentary. So really what I gathered, I found that I've been working with women and their dreams, mostly women, but also sometimes in different settings with men too, that there are certain things that stop us, and they keep coming up, the certain things. So one of them is, I don't have the right training. I should have some sort of degree. One of them is, this dream is too big. There's no way I could possibly do it. Another is, there's a circumstance in my life that is so overwhelming that I couldn't possibly do it. So just to give you an example, so we have a woman who created a school for the Maasai in Tanzania, and she has now educated thousands of children, and she tells her story about how it happened, which is amazing. And she says in this, she's invited by one of the elders of the Maasai to do this. And she says, as she says in the film, I've never been to college. I don't know how to have a building built or set up a curriculum. And she just followed her heart and took that next step. The building was designed on the back of an envelope. Of a used envelope in her purse. So that is, she had no training, no background. The dream is too big. We have a woman who is a concert violinist who actually she played at Obama and George W. Bush's inaugural, very high classic. But what she really dreamed of was being a rock star and getting a group of women violinists together to get on stage and dress in black leather pants and play as she says, the soundtrack of her life. And she followed that and actually was invited by the band Chicago to perform in Las Vegas, to be in residence in Las Vegas and play at the Venetian. So, that was just beyond, it didn't make sense. How could that happen? And and her story is more complicated. I'm giving you short versions. Another woman is an artist, and in 2005, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And she could have stopped, but she kept going. She's still painting, and actually has now become a painting teacher. So that gives you a little taste. I'm really looking at those places where we stop. It's going to mess up my life. Comfort is one of the things, and you brought that up in the quote. It's like part of us wants to have this dream, and part of us doesn't want to move out of the comfort.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
just some of the stories, and Maureen's stories in there too.
Yeah. And speaking of these awkward deliveries, like that it's like these beautiful stories, like it is definitely supported. Things that are supposed to be created are going to be created. You don't have to worry about it, but there might be some like learning that goes along with your yes, where you might be polished, where you might be, sort of have to let go of some of old versions of yourself. And that's just part of it. You can't move into your greater yet to be with the same mentality that brought you to this moment. You're going to have to expand and expect more of yourself. And it can sometimes feel really uncomfortable, like that old thought system of, who do you think you are? You don't got no money. You ain't got no business. You don't got any education. All that you ain't got show up like a family reunion and make you want to jump under the bed, So but the good news is that shows up for everyone. And you just got to kind of, like I like to say, like pet the cat in the right direction and just say, And that's just not true today. I'm just going to take the next right step. I don't have to look at Mount Everest. I'm just going to pack my lunch for a day of hiking, and I'm just going to do what's at hand. And before you know it, you're on the top of Mount Everest. And these things become more possible and more possible, especially when we have a group of people who continue to push the envelope like yourself. And it's so very helpful. It's so very helpful. Reverend Barbara Clevenger has her hand up, so I'm going to go.
Oh, Barbara, hi. I didn't know you were here.
Hi, guys. Great to see everybody. I just have a little brief story. I went through Unity Ministerial School, 94, I don't know, like almost 30 years ago, a long time ago, 4-year program. And some of the students, I was in a class of 42 people for 2 years. So obviously we all moved to Unity Village and we didn't know where we were going. So, you're really close. Anyhow, one of the women I was really close with, I have a college degree and I have an MBA, a master's degree at this point. And then another woman who I just thought was the most fabulous minister in the world did not have either one. And so afterwards, there was this feeling like, should people be allowed to start ministerial school when they don't have a college degree? And I was like horrified with with this thing. And one time she just turned to me with this great exasperation. And she said, you don't value your education, but that's because you haven't. And so, for me, who had the education, I guess I couldn't believe that these fabulous ministers that didn't have it, and they could speak better and they knew some things that I surely didn't know and more experiences, that they were really devaluing themselves. It was just, I couldn't even empathize with them. Do you know what I mean? Because they were so fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, it speaks to that whole thing we were saying before of once we accomplish something, sometimes we don't hold it. It's what you were saying, Maureen, about we don't, look at all that we did to get to the place where we are now. That's how I heard that. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was even more than that in the fact that they weren't seeing how then that the way they could tell a story. Some of the qualifications I had were of no darn use as a minister.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who cares?
We're all perfectly ordained for the invitations that we get to, even if we want to annihilate ourselves and say, I can't get there until I have this, or this after my name. I feel what you're saying because I didn't go to college. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and I went right into acting. But really, if I were to look at God's plan, that acting career gave me the confidence, gave me the being in touch with the human experience when I had to evaluate these characters and what they were going through. Maybe it was the perfect ordination for me as a minister. Obviously it was, because that's the one that I came through. That's the threshold I came through. And it is interesting how we stand on the doorstep and we don't allow ourselves. I was talking to someone this morning who was saying, I've not allowed myself to step into the idea of healer, even though that's what she is. And I told her this story about when I was running a triathlon with my husband, and I would say to the coaches every day, listen, guys, go easy on me. I'm not a jock. I smoke under the bleachers in high school. Like that was my after school. I shouldn't be here. And I would say that every day, like, I'm not a jock. In the same way that she's saying, I'm not a healer. And one day my coaches said to me, stop saying that. That's not true. You show up and you run when we run, you swim when we swim, you bike when we bike, and that's an old story. And you're dragging your old story in here is preventing you from actually knowing yourself as an athlete. It's huge.
It is huge. Yeah.
You can apply that to, I'm not a healer, I'm not a minister, I'm not an author. You can apply that to anything which with you think you need some sort of extra curriculum to give yourself permission. In very rare times have I allowed myself to wait for a permission slip, because guess what? The world's not handing them out.
Yeah.
Just have to give yourself permission. Nancy, we have a question for you, which I'm crossing my fingers around. And it was from Nancy, another Nancy from Ireland, and she is wanting to know if they're going to be able to see your documentary streaming, and possibly if Speakeasy could maybe host a private screening for all the people who are not in the Chicago area.
Oh, that's a possibility. I know that one of the plans is to go to film fests, and there's some requirements around not having it out there. So we're working that out. Eventually it will be streaming, and I would love for Speakeasy to host a private screening of that. I just don't know the timing of it yet.
Okay, so the answer is yes. We're just going to wait and see what form it takes. And
exactly.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. Does anybody else want to share anything before we close out with another beautiful song from our esteemed musician today?
It's a quiet one.
Oh, there's Regina. Hello, Regina Vertico.
Oh, hold on one second. I can't find, there I am. Nancy, you're inspirational, and your story just spoke to my heart. I mean, I've already connected with you on LinkedIn and followed you on Instagram because I just want to have more of this conversation. And, you know, I'm working with Maureen on this project right now, and it's called Regal Muldoon. We're intending to help entrepreneurs, spiritual entrepreneurs, to bring their voice and their visibility to life. And the elixir that you just offered through your words today is fueling my fire and showing me that this is a place that I want to continue working with Maureen, and then even the possibility of like, what is there with Nancy Hill, you know, just because you've done it so well. And I think a lot of us go into hiding, and I know that we were just talking about degrees and all of that kind of stuff, certifications, and you know, there's no qualification except willingness, and a willingness to say yes and to move forward. And the other thing that I've learned through this process is I don't often know what I'm saying yes to. I got a yoga certification 7 years ago. And when I said yes, I'm like, I'm just going to go and learn more about yoga. Like, I don't really intend to be a teacher, but I'm going to go and learn. And then 6 months later, Holy Spirit had me teaching my first class at my corporate conference. And the thing that hadn't been revealed yet was that I was actually leaving. I shouldn't say that. What I had done right before I said yes to teaching at my corporate conference is that I also said yes to quitting my corporate job. And the CEO came into my class, took my first yoga class ever. I was shitting my pants, pardon my language. And he went up on stage and he proclaimed to the entire company, without knowing, I think I'm going to lose Regina to the yoga world. And I was like, I think he just proclaimed my whole next step forward. And sure enough, you know, within a year, I had a full on schedule of yoga teaching. And those are the things that just keep getting revealed to us when we keep saying yes to what's in our heart. And I just, like I said, your story is just like, I'm so grateful because it's been laying a little dormant. And I think that's also something to bring to light, is that, you know, we say yes, and then sometimes we kind of like take a dip, and we're kind of like in this place of like, what the heck, why did I say yes? You know, what did I do this for? And all this doubt comes in. Yeah. And we need women, and it doesn't even have to be women, but I'm gravitating towards women right now. So I'll just say that we need to connect and help each other rise up from that self-doubt, whether, you know, it's through prayer, through your conversation, just through reflection, and stay connected. And that's what, you know, part of Regal Mogul is that sisterhood and staying connected and helping people to bring that to whatever they want to bring out that laid on there. I wish I could remember exactly what you said about, what did you say?
About what?
You got a train going by, Regina, or something happening with your sound.
Oh, I do. I don't have anything going by. It's
Okay, what was it, your question?
yeah, I think I'll shut up. I realized that I just went off on a tangent.
No, you
said
didn't.
something
That
in
was good.
your talk about the word, something being on your heart. I'll go back and watch it, and then I'll.
Okay. Yeah, and if it comes up, feel free to send me a message. I want to say, because I don't want to leave John out, and other guys that are here too. I'm like you, I work a lot with women. Hey, John, there are guys in the film, and one of the guys that is profiled is a carpenter and leading a very comfortable life, but he has a longing to do something else. And so I want to say, and there's another guy in also we spotlight. So there's stuff for the guys in that too. So thank you, Regina and John.
Yeah, we love our men. You know, we are powerful women and the men that love us, but the men, man, the men that showed up on the retreat that facilitated things, they were like off the charts. So the men in our community are incredible, and we're so very grateful for them. They make us better people, and we hope that it's a mutual thing. So the funny thing about Regina and our when she was talking about, like, I don't even know what I'm saying yes to. When we started Regal Mogul, I was just like, Regina, do you want to make a t-shirt together? Like, we started with a t-shirt. It made no sense. We wanted a t-shirt that said spiritual swagger on it. And so we made this t-shirt, and I'm like, I don't know what this means or why we need to do this, but that rolled into something else, and it rolled into doing retreats, and it rolled into taking women across the country, and it rolled into this thing, Regal Mogul, which is, supporting women and spiritual entrepreneurs in marketing and branding. So it, like you said, you don't know, but if you continue to follow the thread of your joy and your longing, so please check out Nancy's book and show up for their screening, and check out her programs. She has her email in the chat, and hopefully, I think we'll have her back, because this conversation is so rich and ripe and juicy. And so, yeah, thank you so much, Nancy Hill. You're such an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you.
Well, John has his hand up, so we got to hear from John. Go ahead, John. And then what?
I'm curious if there's a place to see the documentary, like online, or is it just going to be shown?
Yeah.
Eventually, it will be online, and but I was saying, because of the film fest, we have certain requirements that we can't do. So streaming right now is not going to happen, but it will happen. And Maureen will know about it, since
We'll be the first to know.
You will, definitely.
I picked a card for us while we were talking from a deck that someone gave us.
Oh, wow.
Want to read it, Nancy, before we introduce?
It says, I am ready to go big, rise up, and step into my power. All right. Yay.